Hey guys, some of you may know me and some of you may not. My name is Kennen and I am a PhD student and virologist at Northwestern University, where I study viruses. I also do a little bit of science communication through Science with Kennen, where we've actually talked about coronaviruses in the past as a group of large RNA viruses that actually cause about 15 to 30% of our common colds. However, with this nasty new coronavirus that's sweeping the planet, I figured I'd call in some of my amazing scientists and doctor friends to give us a lowdown on what's going on. We're going to hear from Maya Maroof, a PhD student in immunology and infectious disease at Georgia State University, about how the coronavirus gets into our cells. From Dr. Priya Soni, a medical doctor and pediatric infectious disease specialist at Cedars-Sinai, on the signs, symptoms, and treatments for the disease COVID-19, and wrap it up with Dr. Elizabeth Dellery, who will tell us about how we can help limit the spread and the number of deaths caused by this virus. So, without any further ado, sit back, relax, and learn something. Take it away, Maya.
Hey everyone, my name is Maya Maroof, and today I will be talking about how coronaviruses infect the host cell. In this case, it would be the human cell. So first things first, let's talk about the structure of coronaviruses. So coronaviruses have these spike proteins on their surfaces, also called S proteins, and they have two main jobs: receptor binding and receptor specificity. So they know what cells they want to target, whether it was the lower respiratory system, the upper respiratory system, or maybe just a totally different organ of the body. So for an infection to happen, number one, these spike proteins go and find their target cells. Once they find those, they're going to attach these receptors to the target cell. Now, once attached, it's going to uncoat itself and insert its genetic material inside the cell. So this genetic material right here will be inserted to the human cell. Why? Because the virus wants to make more copies of its genome. Once enough copies are made, these genomes will package themselves and they're going to be released so they can infect even more cells. Now, like we said before, coronaviruses are RNA viruses. So therefore, they have higher mutation rates. Where does the mutation happen though? So mutations happen during the copying process. You would expect that a copy is replicating the exact same thing, but coronaviruses have a controlled mechanism in which they get random bits and pieces of different templates and they combine those. So this recombination makes a new strain. So therefore, inside your body, coronaviruses are constantly mutating. Therefore, if your body is trying to make memory molecules, for example, for a circular spike protein, but it just changed to a triangle shape, this memory molecule, which is also called an antibody, will not be able to bind and attack the virus and get rid of it. And therefore, that's why the virus would outcompete your body and it would keep mutating, and eventually that could cause serious disease. And of course, everything is still under study, so nothing is known yet. No actual treatments are known yet. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Priya Soni and I'm a pediatric infectious disease specialist here at Cedars-Sinai, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about some of the signs and symptoms of SARS-CoV-2/COVID-19. So basically you're going to have a wide variety of clinical signs and symptoms. Sometimes some patients that get it just have a mild respiratory illness, a little bit of cough, runny nose, congestion, fever, not unlike the common cold or the flu, right? So some patients, however, do develop more significant infections. So they start out having a very high fever that progresses quickly to shortness of breath, and then respiratory distress leading to respiratory failure, or something in medicine that we call ARDS. So those really vulnerable patients, what we're finding in the data so far is that they're usually 50 and above, around 50 to 70 actually, and then they also end up having some comorbid conditions. So they have heart disease, or they have diabetes, or they have some sort of underlying pulmonary condition that sort of makes their infection much worse. We're not seeing as much infection in children. Something about the child's innate immune system really protects them against this particular virus, which is good. In terms of a treatment, we are looking and moving forward towards a vaccine. I think a vaccine is going to be our best bet here, and that usually takes about 12 to 18 months to develop, so it's going to take some time, but we hope to have that out for at least our most vulnerable patients. The other thing is there is a possible treatment in the works called remdesivir. It's a anti-HIV drug actually, but it's used in other coronaviruses like SARS, has been used in Ebola before. So we are currently trying to figure out if that's going to be a good strategy for some patients that are critically ill with this. Keep in mind, most patients do recover from this, so we're probably going to reserve treatment to just the patients that are super sick with this. One thing I wanted to mention is that flu is still a really big deal. So influenza, we are seeing over 20,000 deaths in the US alone from this infection this season. Please get your flu shot, and please keep the flu in mind as the cause of your respiratory symptoms and not just COVID-19. You know, the flu is something that we should be getting a vaccine for every year, but only 46% of our country gets a flu vaccine, which is crazy. And it's something that we can get and we can be better about. So just keep that in mind. And I also wanted to encourage good hand washing and at least a 60% alcohol-based hand sanitizer. That's something that you should have on you when you're in crowded places or do come in contact with someone with respiratory symptoms. All right, thanks.
Now I bet you guys are wondering, what can I do? And that's a great question. You can actually stay at home. By socially distancing and isolating yourself from others, you are preventing the spread of the virus, thus flattening the curve. Now, a lot of people don't realize, but there is potential asymptomatic transfer, which means you could be sick and not even realizing it and infecting those around you. So by staying home, you are decreasing that spread. And like I mentioned, flattening the curve. Now, if you haven't heard that hashtag or seen it floating around on social media, it's a campaign to draw awareness to the study produced by the Imperial College of London, which showed that if the US did nothing, and they didn't shut down schools, and they didn't close down bars and restaurants and issue quarantines and limit group gatherings, there was going to be a steep increase in cases, which could potentially overwhelm the US hospital system, which isn't good, and we really don't want that. So by socially isolating, we are preventing that steep increase and therefore flattening the curve. Now, I realize this is not going to apply to all of you. Some of you are going to be considered essential personnel, which means you still have to go into work, like first responders, doctors, nurses, because your job is essential to keeping society functioning during this time. But there are things you can still do while at work to prevent the spread. You can socially distance yourself from your coworkers by about 6 feet to avoid, coughing on each other. Please don't cough on each other. Cover your coughs and sneezes, please. Make sure to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds, and if you are not feeling well, don't go into work. Now, these things all play a role to help flatten the curve and prevent the spread of the virus, which will prevent the overwhelming of the hospital systems. So you guys all play a critical role, whether you're essential personnel or you're staying at home to self-isolate. You are saving lives. So we got to keep this up. We got to hang in there. Don't panic. It will be okay. Doctors, nurses, and scientists are working tirelessly behind the clocks to work on drug treatments, vaccines, whatever we can to help clear up this crisis. So again, don't panic. Now would be a good time to learn a new hobby, exercise more at your house. And if you have any questions or you are worried, please let us know. We'll be happy to answer them. And if you start to feel sick, make sure to call your doctor and ask what's going on. So thanks for tuning in.